No, because she could spill it and we can make a big mess here and cleaning later will be very pissed off.
Good to go? Yep. Good. That was a really interesting session, and this session between now and lunchtime, which I know is just on the horizon, so we'll try and keep it short and snappy, is kind of following on from that. We're talking about collaboration, the theme of collaboration, and how that can sort of lead into resilience and adaptation for your cinemas and how to use that. So we're going to have 3 presentations, and unfortunately for you, you have to listen to me first. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our network, Access Cinema. I know some of you have heard this probably more than once already, so please bear with me. After myself, then we'll have Caro will come back, and we'll talk about boot camp. And then we will have Arturo, who's going to talk about, not yet Arturo, you're okay, you can relax. Who's going to talk about the Collaborate to Innovate project that his cinema was involved in. So again, very much around how we as cinemas can collaborate with each other, but also with other partners across the network. Yes. That's okay. I can, yeah. So, just to tell you a little bit more about Access Cinema, we're an organisation of many different hats, I guess, essentially. Today my sort of presentation is supposed to be around talking about the idea of resilience and how our organisation has really kind of its model has become a strategy for and actually originated from the idea of addressing the lack of cinema in certain parts of the country. So actually when yesterday when Andre was talking about cinema deserts and this topic of cinema deserts, they weren't called cinema deserts back whenever this organisation was first set up, but that's essentially what it was set up for. So we are a mini network of, at this point, all over Ireland, 80 different organisations that Access Cinema works with on a regular basis. As you can see, I don't know if how many of you have been to Ireland, but essentially over here you have Dublin, which is the capital, and once you get outside of Dublin, it's pretty rural, as with some of your own countries. Access Cinema originated from the grassroots upwards. So while we're a professional organisation now, we came from the Film Society movement. That's how we originated. It was the idea that there were areas around Ireland where at the time you had actually quite an established Film Society network, screening from, I think, originally back on 16mm primarily, and then over time to different other formats, maybe even 8mm before that. So you had volunteers, and I know some of you still have that kind of element of voluntary organisations within your countries. You had volunteers who were hearing about all of these great films that were being coming out of France or coming from, you know, kind of South America and so on during the 1950s and 1960s. They knew what they wanted to see. They wanted to see these films, but they didn't know how they were going to access them, or they needed help in terms of accessing them and getting the materials, but also negotiating with the rights holders, which at the time there would have been no rights holders within Ireland, so they needed help in terms of getting the materials from either the UK or further afield. And then what happened was, so that organisation, or those independent, I guess if you want to call them, film societies, wanted some sort of umbrella organisation that would help them come together as a grouping and help with this sourcing and negotiation around film rights. Then what happened was in the 1990s, the Federation of Irish Film Societies was set up as a result of that. This umbrella organisation. I think at the time there was maybe one volunteer who took on the administration of that work, and it was on a part-time basis. And then in the 1990s, the Arts Council in Ireland, they have a remit for what at the time, or they had a remit at the time, and they still refer to it today, for establishing more diverse cinema programming across Ireland. And when they spoke about programming, they talked about cultural cinema programming. Cultural cinema, what is that? I mean, is cinema of any type not culture? But that's a bigger conversation, a bigger discussion. But ultimately what happened then was the Arts Council started to invest in these mixed programme venues where you already had different types of art forms, like you had galleries, or you had theatre productions, or you had dance, you had music gigs, and they started to invest in equipment into these venues as well to include cinema as part of an overall artistic programme. So then the Federation at the time started to get queries from these different types of clients with different needs to the film societies, because they often didn't necessarily know what films were available or what films they might want to see. They had more money than the film societies, but so there were different needs there. As a result of that then, the Federation, as it was, changed its name to Access Cinema, as it is today. So when we talk about cultural and cinema deserts, and I'll kind of, I mean, cinema and culture, cinema is a very strong part of culture in Ireland. We view it very much as it's considered to be one of the most accessible art forms. And for many venues that we work with, they see it as a way to get audiences into their venue that may not be there already, and then hopefully if they come for cinema, they will cross over into other art forms as well. So Ireland is a country that has grown quite significantly in recent years. We haven't had a census since 2022, I think there's supposed to be one this year, but at the time of the last census we had over 5 million people. 77% of those describe themselves as white ethnic, so not particularly strong on diversity up to that point. It has become a more diverse sort of national sort of infrastructure if you look across the country, but a lot of the diversity does tend to be in the capital Dublin and some of the bigger hubs. Dublin is the largest city, and then when we talk about cities after that, you can see that some of our cities are your villages, because next biggest city is Cork, with less than 250,000 people. So big difference between Dublin and the rest of the country. And we can see that quite a lot, over 1.2 million are at the age of 18 at the time of the last census, and then on top of that you have another in terms of youth audiences or young adults. And then if we look at the art house situation in Ireland, essentially up until the beginning of last year we had 3 full-time art house cinemas in the whole of Ireland. I'm talking about the Republic of Ireland here. I'm not going to get into Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, but for the purposes of this, because obviously we're here for Europa Cinemas, Northern Ireland is technically part of the UK and therefore is no longer part of the EU. So that's a whole other political football that we can talk about. So we have 2 full-time art house cinemas in Dublin, and then Lighthouse Cinema also had a sister cinema in Galway on the west coast up until last year, and that closed after a very long sort of development period that was quite problematic, and it eventually opened, and then there was issues, and but ultimately in terms of a full-time art house cinema, the figures just weren't adding up for the operator at the time. So they closed their doors in February of last year, and there are some developments happening, but it's most likely if it does reopen, it won't be as an art house cinema. So that means that there are a lot of deserts in terms of art house cinema, European cinema, international cinema. And that's why we exist. So our sites, for the most part, are not full-time cinema sites. We refer to them as part-time cinema sites. So, as I said, they're a mix of largely film societies run by volunteers. Some of those film societies screen and partner with mixed program venues. Some program or screen in a variety of other types of venues, from community centres, community halls, all the way down to bars, restaurants. And then you have the mixed programme venues themselves, who are subsidised by the Arts Council, so they have a certain amount of funding to present cinema screenings. And then in addition we have some independent cinemas who largely their programme is made up of commercial content that they will work with distributors directly on themselves. But then they come to us, to Access Cinema, to help them with their art house or their international cinema programmes. So we have 80 different sites, which is a lot of sites, but the frequency at which these sites screen and also the size and the diversity of these sites is very broad. So we have some sites that will screen once a month, once a month, the smaller sites, to other larger sites that screen once to twice a week the whole year round. So it's very diverse in that respect. And as a result of that, it also means that, again, because of the size and the investment in the different sites, some do have DCP capability. It's approximately a quarter of the network has DCP capability, but the rest are smaller sites with non-DCP capability, which is why I was asking all those questions about non-DCP yesterday. But the network has really grown since I started back in 2006. There was only 35 sites at that point, and before COVID it had grown to 80. Again, just to kind of give you a little bit of context, and I'm just conscious of time here, but Ireland traditionally has a very strong cinema-going public. At one point we were, I think, if not the top cinema-going public in Europe, we were very close to the top. Where pre-COVID, for every man, woman and child, they went to the cinema approximately between 4 and 5 times a year, including babies under the age of 6 months. But then if you look at the figures here, and I don't know if you can see properly, the actual percentage in terms of European films or international films, and these are statistics taken from European cinemas, is low in comparison to the overall. So the market share for international and European films is quite low. So our model is very much based around the idea of communities, building communities for cultural cinema, European cinema, international cinema, within the different cultural deserts, cinema deserts. And we focus on helping the various different sites build up their communities for the type of cinema that they want to screen. And obviously we're trying to help them in that respect. So we build up relationships with our sites. We approach it very much as partnership with each site, so that there is buy-in and trust and loyalty very much at the core of the screening activities, because we feel you cannot underestimate that, and that's very important. As many of you know, it's very important in terms of establishing your audience, growing your audience, and keeping your model and your venue and cinema sustainable. We work around the basis of shared knowledge. So we share knowledge. We want the programmers within the network as well to share knowledge with each other and learn from each other. So kind of like a mini version of what we're doing here in many ways. And some of the topics that we touched on yesterday: accessibility and inclusion, engagement, all of the different sort of areas that we're sort of driving forward as we move forward in the future. And then future-proofing is a really important thing for us in terms of helping the members as well bounce back from various different developments. The main sort of kind of key part to the service that we provide to our members is this programming and booking service. So essentially all of our sites in the network, because they're very diverse, most of them don't have the resources or the knowledge or the time to actually kind of go and find out what's available for them to program. So part of what we do is we gather all of that information for them. We curate catalogues of films for them, and then we circulate that information to them, and that starts a process, a two-way process with each site, where we will speak to them about their films that they may want to screen within a particular period, the type of audience that they have, different initiatives, whether they want to eventize certain screenings, whether there's possibilities to invite filmmakers, and so on. So every scenario is different for us. And that while there are some general commonalities, so there will be certain films that we will know everybody will want to screen. Hamnet being the main one at the moment that is kind of a thorn in my side. But then it is very much about customizing, talking to them, knowing what their audience, they know better than we do what their audience is, but because we have long established relationships with most of them, we will, and we also have records of what they have screened previously, what the figures for those screenings are, then we can see certain trends, both for themselves, but also trends across the network in terms of what films worked, what films they might consider that worked at another venue. So the day-to-day work is very much about that. We're kind of this one point of contact between all of our sites and the rights holders, the distributors for the various different films. So we take all of the pain out of that process, all of the admin out of that process for our sites. So the only thing that they have to worry about is getting the list from us, looking at the list, speaking to us about the various different films, deciding what films they might want to program and the dates they might want to program those on. They send that to us then, and then we gather together, collate all of the information, and say for all of the screenings of Hamnet, we send those bookings together to the distributor and say, here we've got 20 bookings of Hamnet on DCP format, can you confirm? Can you deliver the materials to us? We then get the materials and we coordinate the delivery of the materials around the network. So that's kind of the basic premise of it. As part of that then, there's programming meetings where we meet with the programmers of the sites as groups. We invite them, we will talk through the films. As I said, it also gives them an opportunity to speak to each other, learn from each other. We also give them screening opportunities, so a bit like what you were talking about, Sonia, in terms of getting them together, holding maybe a day of screenings of films that will be available for them to see in the future. And we also have one big weekend of screenings that we do as well. And then this idea of one-to-one consultation, that it's always bespoke. So yeah, as I said, booking of titles, dispatch of materials. Then once they have decided what they want to show, sending them all of the official supporting materials, imagery, copy. We customise copy. They can use it if they want to or not. We gather together film reviews, all of that sort of information about awards, all in one document, so that they can use that if they wish to. Programming meetings, circulating the film list beforehand. general discussion, follow-up discussions then very much on a one-to-one basis, because it's very much no one-size-fits-all, just by the diversity and also the formats. So that's kind of the core premise of what we do. That kind of keeps us busy and out of trouble for most of the part. But in terms of, I guess, as a model, it's also important for us to be representative at the national level and the international level, to have a voice on behalf of our members, and also be representative and really champion the activities of our members. So these are just some examples of kind of what we sort of feel our role is in terms of at national level. So very much a voice for our members, a prominent seat at the table within the Irish cinema exhibition and cultural sectors. So we are there to be able, you know, instead of the individual voices from, you know, particularly from the very small venues, on the grassroots venues, that sometimes it's underestimated how much value they bring to local communities by saying and presenting the data and the stories of these different sites at the national level, that can really sort of communicate the importance of this activity. Lobbyists during COVID, again, individual venues, because they are not full-time cinemas for the most part. During COVID, there were various, as you all know, different regulations in different countries. At one point in Ireland, cinemas were allowed open. Well, at several points, cinemas were allowed open. But our sites, because they were not defined as cinemas, were technically not allowed open. So we engaged with the Department of Culture on their behalf, and then an exemption was given to our sites as well as non-specialist cinema sites. A resource for the cinema industry themselves. So the funders like Screen Ireland, the Arts Council, we update them very frequently on what's happening. For example, I will be, you know, kind of going back and I'll be sharing information, no detailed information obviously, but kind of giving information about sort of what we had here, when there's a Europa Cinemas Network meeting at the different festivals, if I attend a festival, giving them information about how it is in other territories and how Ireland compares, standards, best practice, all of those sort of things that hopefully our funders and other stakeholders within the cinema sector can learn from. An innovator, we really try to push the boundaries in terms of innovation and keep ahead of the curve. During COVID, we used that time, that downtime, to explore for our non-DCP sites digital delivery, because we kind of saw the writing on the wall that the discs that our non-DCP sites had historically used for screenings were starting to disappear. Distributors were, even before COVID, were starting to talk about, well, maybe we're not going to produce discs anymore, but they weren't necessarily talking about digital replacements for that. So we explored and experimented with different platforms, digital platforms, and came across a platform called Artini that we piloted, and then we actually went to the main distributors in the UK and Ireland that we work with on a continual basis, and we got them on board to start giving us content. We haven't quite got the studios on board yet, but we will break them down eventually. We'll just have to invite them to a party or something. Challenging, always challenging the norms, what's acceptable. I mean, not just kind of across the sector, but also within our own network. Accessibility, which we touched on a lot yesterday, we've been really trying to push the boundaries on that. Like we referred to yesterday, the fact that distributors up until quite recently weren't even producing certain accessible materials, and even if they weren't necessarily making them available across all screening formats. Within our own network, challenging the mindsets of people. So again, back to what I referred to yesterday about certain audiences not wanting to attend caption screenings because, you know, that's not for them, we challenge that. We challenge the venues to challenge their audiences. And a champion for what we do, a champion for international cinema, a champion for European cinema as well. International level then, Access Cinema was the first mini network to be accepted into Europa cinemas. I can't take credit for that, unfortunately, that would be before my time. But essentially for the sites that are, for our sites that are part of Europa cinemas, again, for some reason, we agreed to do all of the work for them, so we report all of the data to poor Maria at this point, and then the support comes through us and we disseminate it between the different sites. Two-way information carrier, again, between the different territories. I spoke about that previously. And also we occasionally take on a distribution role ourselves. There are a lot of films that are released in the UK and Ireland these days, but when the UK left through Brexit, it also meant that UK could not access any European money for distribution. So that has provided an opportunity for us to partner and collaborate with UK distributors, where we take on the rights for the film in Ireland, and then we can apply through the sales agents for European money. Last year we did this we did it more than we had intended. We did it 3 times last year, but at the moment we kind of aim for once or twice a year. And the advantage for our network with this is that if we do get that support, we can then really give additional materials and do additional publicity, etc., that will focus a lot on the screenings at our sites, not just the full-time cinemas. And finally, innovation. We've been involved in European projects we've been involved in projects at European level around innovation. Coming out of COVID, there was a particular call that was around trying to get audiences back into cinemas, and we developed with a couple of organisations in Stockholm, in Sweden, in Germany, and in Slovenia. We were involved in this Innovate project that was focused on bringing people back into the cinema and experimenting with different things, which included what you see here, VR and gaming. My God, it was like controversial. So we do, where we see opportunities to experiment, to push boundaries, we do that. And all of this has helped in terms of the resilience of the network. Ultimately, at the core of it though, it is around the communities and the fact that our sites have built up trust with us, but also trust of the quality of the films and the programs that they deliver in their communities. So often our sites, they will have people who just come along without even knowing what's going to be on. They trust that programming and they trust where they're going to experience it in a shared social environment. So, and there's not always alcohol involved, just to let you know, but sometimes it does help. Sometimes there's tea as well, and sandwiches, but so yeah. So pre-COVID we had 86,500 admissions approximately, which again, I know in the context for some of you that seems very small, but bearing in mind that these are only part-time cinema venues. We'll take questions afterwards. And now we're at the point where we have, for 2025, the initial figures are indicating 89,000. So there was quite a kind of, in comparison to some of the full-time cinemas, and definitely in comparison to commercial cinemas, there was a resilience that we had built up there. And that's it.
Thank you.
And actually just the images at the beginning of that thing were from a campaign we did. Access Cinema did a campaign during or coming out of COVID. Again, we applied for support from the Arts Council and Screen Ireland for it to get audiences back into cinemas. So we did a couple of different, I guess, trailers, if you wanted to call them that. And then these were rolled out across our sites, just our sites, and actually helped. Okay, so next up we have Caro, and she's going to tell us all about boot camp.
Yeah. Okay, hello guys, once more. This is the last one, I swear. I'm going to talk a bit more about the bootcamp framework and scheme from Europa Cinemas. That's also a way that you can collaborate together as cinemas. I didn't prepare an actual presentation, I'm just going to talk about how we did it. I think it's maybe a bit more interesting. First, maybe again a little poll. Who has already participated in a bootcamp? Okay, so that's 4 of people present here. What are boot camps? They're actually training, local trainings organized by the cinemas themselves who participate. And they can basically be on any subject as long as it helps you innovate a certain part of your day-to-day operations. It can be marketing, it can be young audience attraction, it can be figuring out loyalty schemes. The thing is that you choose your own topic because you customize it to your own needs. The requirements are not that hard, like you need to be at least 3 individual network members, and there need to be at least 8 individuals, people participating. Let's call it like that, that's the bottom line. And you get funding basically if the ID, the thought is approved by Europa Cinemas. So then I'll get into some context of the bootcamp I organized in Belgium. So as you guys know, Belgium we have 3 languages, so 2 separate, 2 major ones. It's Dutch in the north and Flanders, and French in the south, the Leuven area. So culture is funded regional in Belgium, so it's the Flemish government that subsidizes us cinemas. And actually we're quite lucky that they put a lot of effort, I think, compared maybe to other governments, in helping exhibitors connect with one another. There are 2 network moments for exhibitors each year. So there is already a tradition of cinemas meeting and talking to one another, and it goes from cultural centers who have some film like maybe once a week to like the multiplexes who are also invited. So it's actually, there is a tradition of coming together. So out of this tradition, one meeting, the data subject already came up. One of my colleagues, Frank, who's not here, is there a live stream now? Otherwise, hi Frank. He did a presentation on data, and it sparked a lot of interest because it made a lot of people concerned. Like, oh, we're not doing well, we don't have money to contact people who actually know about data and AI and how we need to improve it. We're just small cultural players, we don't know what to do. So actually we wanted to tackle this subject heads-on, and it was actually also, I have to give credit to the Flemish Audiovisual Fund, so who organizes these moments, who pushed us in the way, like, we don't always have money for you guys, but look at Europa Cinemas, there's funding there if you want to focus on this subject specifically. So that's what we did. We were with 7. It's difficult to count because some cinemas have like more venues in different cities, but we were all together with 6 different cinemas, 5 different cinemas, but with a lot more locations anyway. And we did a call who of the art house cinemas specifically, so we did narrow it down to art houses specifically who wants to work on this bootcamp with us. Marlies from Buddha was also there, by the way. So we thought, so first we came together to meet to get everyone on the same page. What is it that we want to get out of this, and what subject will we determine? And we chose the data one, but then of course there were people who wanted like maybe a basic course on Excel, to then my colleague Frank, who is very advanced, and like you had to meet all the means in one format. So what we came up with was that the first day, and this is maybe a bit different than from the boot camps you've heard examples of before, we did a first general introduction day where we had 4 guest speakers on different topics for inspiration, basically. So we had one on data visualization and the power of that. We had one of the government of Belgium themselves, who every year ask for a report, you know, and of like how your admissions, how many admissions did you have, how many visitors, And they also kind of came to explain what they do with that information. So it was also very interesting for us to learn why we actually have to do that, why we actually have to provide them with the data all the time. We had one speaker on marketing, using data in marketing, and then we had one also finishing speaker on AI. So again, like it was a first introduction, inspiration day. And then the real strongest part came actually after, the day after already. We started with workshops. So we contacted someone who specialized in helping cultural institutions deal with their data. Like there is a consultant for that, so thanks to Europa Cines we were able to afford someone like that. She came to us and we had to prepare already before, think of a day-to-day operation, each and every one of us, that we wanted to improve using data. And so we actually had a consultant in that way who could help us with that. She was not going to do it for us, but it was very nice that we had her with us to like help us form a narrow idea, narrow it down, and help us on the way. And actually after that, we had 3 months. So our bootcamp lasted 3 months, which is pretty rare when you hear other people talk about the bootcamp. It's usually just 3 or 4 days, like maybe like this, a bit intense. But for data, it wouldn't make sense to do it that way, because just like now, maybe you were a bit impressed with all the information Javi gave you yesterday. If you don't pick it up, like the next week, maybe it's lost information forever. So with the bootcamp, the format we figured out, you had time to work on it, and it was also a bit of pressure to work on it, because you don't want to meet the rest the next time and be like, we didn't do anything, you know, like there was a motivation to actually start working on it, and the fact that we could choose for our own cinema what we would want to work on made it very attractive for all the partners. Like no one was forced to participate. So each and every cinema chose their own topic, had 3 months to work on it, and then we presented to one another after those 3 months. In the middle, we also had a digital get-together with the consultant as well to share struggles maybe where we were pushing against the wall, where we could reorient the thing, what we were doing. And I think I showed you guys the result of our own project yesterday already a bit. We did the audience survey. We had already done that before the bootcamp, as I explained, but during the bootcamp we actually had time to start working on it, and also then to share it with the rest at the end of the bootcamp. Other cinemas, for example, Marlies in Buda, it was quite also an interesting case. It's just that one specific person of their staff is leaving soon. She's retiring, and it's not going to be replaced. So how can, and she did a lot of Excels,
a lot of
manual labor in that world. So it was really a call for action to them to then think about how can we maybe like erase this work or make it a lot more efficient so no one else has to. So it was an incentive to look at the whole structures of their organization and think about programs like, for example, Airtable you were looking at to actually get a better structure in the organization so that things like this, so no one needs a full-time job for Excels. Basically that was their incentive.
Yeah.
There was another cinema who is actually is not a full-time cinema yet. They are an organization who screens Move, they're called by the way, who screens films in cultural centers just once a week on different places in Flanders. But they will open a cinema next year, so they will have their fixed venue. So they already have an audience in a certain way because they have film screening in different places and also already in this city. So they were thinking, how can we tie these people to us already before opening? And then of course you also need data, but they weren't collecting any data, so we were like, start doing it. So you already have, especially in the one city that you're going to build your cinema, you already have an audience to go to. Another cinema group that participated, Art House Cinema Group, they had just taken over a new venue that was otherwise going to close down, which is in a quite small town in Belgium, like I don't know the inhabitants, but it's really not that big. It's not even a city, I would call it a town. And this was a multiplex with that also screens the Minecraft movie, and that was the tradition of the cinema. And they were an art house collective, so it was for them the first time to like also run, because they were going to keep that, by the way, so they were going to start running also commercial venue in this small town. But but then also open it to more art house titles as well, you know. So they also use the data, for example, of the the owners prior, and then how they could use that to then, yeah, keep this community coming to the cinema and growing as well. Also, they were slowly changing the profile of what they were doing. Am I missing? Ah yeah, the cinema, they were in the process of making a whole new website. So the bootcamp also for them, they were going to do that anyway, but the bootcamp came at a great time because they really, because of our input as well, they didn't make, for example, the same mistakes we did when we made a new website, and now we're like, oh, we didn't think about that, so we could share with one another a lot. So now they have a new website which is looking very nice. It's like with an API to the movie database. So I always recommend, like, really think a lot about your structure when you're going to put a lot of money into building a website. Think about the structure very, very carefully before letting the modelers start building it, for example. So for them, having a consultant and the rest of us there to already give feedback was very, like, came at the perfect time for them. Another cinema also did another kind of audience survey for a specific event that was slacking a little bit, so, and they wanted to make it grow again, so there were a lot of different sizes of projects, but it didn't matter because it was what worked best for the individual participant, but sharing the knowledge. So the result of our bootcamp is each of us now has improved in the realm of data because we actually gave ourselves the time to do so, but also we are keeping in contact these specific cinemas who are still meeting up in June. I think we just pointed out the date, so we want to prolong the bootcamp. Just you don't have to send any more money, but we are unless you want to. But like we are prolonging the collaboration also after the bootcamp took place. So for us, it was really I think it was overall a very positive experience. We're keeping this little network.
It will be different topics though. It won't be only.
It
like, can also be like projection or marketing.
Yes, we're now thinking, and we're also thinking of maybe applying it for another bootcamp. So I mean, yes, now we're focusing more on projection and all of that. So I can only recommend looking into the bootcamp scheme. Maybe one major advantage is that it's in your own language. So like I'm here now in English, but it takes a lot more of your brain to not do it in your mother tongue. So it's like for us it was only Dutch participants. It flows a lot easier. You can invite specialists from even another country. We got people from the Netherlands in on the first inspiration day a lot because the Netherlands is a bit more ahead of us in that sense. So it was, I can actually really only recommend it. So look into it. It's quite easy to apply. And if you have questions, also really Mila from the Europa Cinema staff is very kind. She will really help you find the way to go and recommend experts if you don't have an idea yet, because they have a lot of experience with all different types of experts, so they also can recommend someone in a certain field. So yeah, that's think about it.
Thank you. And then finally, kind of leading on from that and the idea of collaboration and partnership at the national, regional level, we're going to have Arturo, who's going to talk to us about Collaborate to Innovate and the project that they did.
Hello. This is I will talk about this Stranger Together collaboration between cinemas. The project was face to face with in European cinema in 2023 and 2024, no? In these 2 years. And project coordination is okay. It's difficult for me. Like the Cines, Gdynia, okay? Gdynia and Wood. Thank you. Okay, this is two cities in Poland, one city in Germany, Potsdam, and 2 cities in Spain, Valladolid and Terrassa. And in Valladolid, there's 2 cinemas. Broadway and Manhattan. It's two cinemas, but it's only one owner. Okay. And this Casablanca cinema. Well, now I ask you something. What is the more interesting of this project? Is UNESCO film series. You know, there's some series, UNESCO thematic series, literature of art series, and there's cinema series in Europe. Gdynia and Woods in Poland, because there are some festivals and schools connected with cinema. Osman in Germany, and this is the two UNESCO cinema series in Spain, is Valladolid in Castilla y León, in the center of the country, and Tarrasa is in Catalonia, in the northeast of Spain. No? I think it's very interesting this, no? Because it's connected some organizations, no? Europa Cinemas, UNESCO series, cinema series. This is the 5 UNESCO film series, 7 Europa Cinemas Network, Gdyńskie Centrum Filmowe in Gdynia, and Charlie in Woods, Thalia in Poznan, and these two cinemas, and these 3 cinemas. But I wanted to ask you, how many of your cinemas are only private cinemas and public or semi-public cinemas here? Only private cinemas here, maybe? Okay. Okay. So basically, no, because I thought maybe it's also here. There's some public. Thalia, I think, is private cinema. Cinema Catalunya is a mixture, is private but public cinema as well. And Broadway and Manhattan and Casablanca is only private cinemas. No? Then it's interesting because it's connected public with private. Because we engaged the institutions for this project. No? The municipalities, because it's UNESCO film series, then the municipalities go to this project and support this project. Very, very, very important audience, young people. Young people. Introducing the children to cinema suitable for some country. In old days we are talking about our audience, and sadly sometimes young people is difficult to bring these young people to the cinemas. No? Then this project for this is very, very important. It's with colleges, with young people, for habituated to go to the cinemas. No? Maybe in the future the children remember this experience and go to the cinemas and go to see some Spanish or German film. No? Because it's not just film, but culture. The culture is a very important part of a country culture is the food, of course. No? And it's very funny. It's for make relationships. Okay. You can find this article in the web of Europa Cinemas. This is Kinga, who was the person who was in charge of organizing this. And here we are, all the people. This is in 2023, preparing the meeting in 2024. Well, some pictures about the show in Gdynia. There was some preparation before with the children, talking some days before about Spanish culture and Spanish cinema. I can see now. Do you recognize this? This is Buñuel.
The art.
Yeah, okay. So famous Buñuel. And here I can see now is Almodóvar and maybe Saura. Maybe Buñuel, Saura, and Almodóvar are the three best known directors from Spain, no? And now is this, this is the film. We all chosen one film to be shown. It's, I don't know in English now, 20,000 species of bees. Yeah. It's the most famous film in this year in Spain. It's very, very interesting film. And for the children as well, very, very interesting because the star is a children and there's a child. Okay, and this was the film we chose. And this is another picture of the event. Vidiña and in woods, Spanish culture as well. and some about the region, about Catalonia, about Castilla y León. Yeah. And okay, this is the meeting. But what? Okay, something important as well is to visit not only the cinemas, visit the town and know about. We was in the official opening of the National Center for Film Culture in Woods, and in the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the Woods Film School. It's the more important thing in Poland, no? Byron and all the directors from Poland from the 80s and the 90s, so known in Europe, no? Yeah, you can see that. Well, but the most important is not only the meeting, but the consequences of the future after this, no? Okay, yes. Meeting the colleagues in charge of the participation in cinemas and hearing about the experience, but is the more important. Building professional networks with cinema units in UNESCO cities within the country itself. Okay, we didn't collaborate with the cinemas in our city. Why? We just like competition. With the private cinemas, we have some kind of competition between us, no? But after this, we had some collaboration as well. This is positive, very, very positive. But I don't know nothing about Cinema Catalunya and Terrassa. After this, we knew each other and we began a collaboration in Spanish. Like this is in Goya Awards. Goya Awards in Spain is like national awards in Spain. Okay, there's Robot Dreams. I don't know if you know this. Very famous. And the director is Pablo Berger here. And then you have a special session in Casablanca, yes, Casablanca cinemas, and online with direct transmission to Broadway and Manhattan cinemas, no? With children. No? That was very, very interesting. It's the same, but in the city. No? Oh, sorry. Oh. Oh, oh, oh no. Maybe. Yeah. Okay. 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 This is with the collaboration with Cinema Catalunya. No? It was my last film. It was premiered in the festival in Catalonia. It's not only between exhibitions, no, but producers and exhibition. And this is my last film. Secundarias is like supporting actresses. It was the inauguration of the festival. It's a one-shot film festival because it's about films, short films in one shot. And my last film was 75 minutes in one shot. No? And then was in this. It was very important for me, and the reason was that Ramon and we met in the Europa cinemas in Gdynia and Woods, no? We are from Spain, but we didn't know each other, no? And for this is so important, this collaboration, no? Not only the exhibition, but a lot of different things. No? And here, this is in the festival in Valladolid. Is the Valladolid Film Festival, it's Seminci. It's one of the most important festivals in Spain. First is San Sebastian, and then Valladolid. It's 70 years old, no? And then the people from Poland, from Germany, went to Valladolid, to the festival, only for the UNESCO Gala. In this festival, one day of the festival is the UNESCO Gala, no? This is not the people of the Europa cinemas. This is some young peoples in the UNESCO Gala. There's some awards for the people. This is the director of the festival. And visit in this UNESCO Gala. No? That is very important because it's not only exhibitions and festival, and we establish some kind of collaboration for the future, no? Between the people in Europa cinemas, in UNESCO City, and public and private collaboration. No? I think this is 3 points very, very, very important. Of course, in Casablanca cinemas, we're promoting screening of European films, like Marta Mestaro from Hungary, Leopold Lindbergh for Switzerland, I think. Czech cinema, Anya Blejan retrospective as well. No? Then it's a consequence because there was a Polish cinema. I'm looking for this Polish 80 cinemas in the Polish cinemas as well. No, this is another consequences. And now, can this concept be adapted by exhibitors in other countries? This is, I can see now here very well, the UNESCO city in the world. There is in Europe. I think, I can see if, you can see?
Yes, we can.
Partly.
Yeah.
Rome, Rome, Michele, Rome, okay. I don't know. Sofia, of course. Rome and Sofia.
Galway.
What?
Galway.
Galway, okay.
Yeah.
Galway. And
We're also there.
Cluj, Napoca.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay, you can see in the page in the web, European UNESCO city cinema, UNESCO city. No, it's very interesting. And then I encourage you. Okay. Okay. 14 UNESCO cities in Europe, I think is United Kingdom as well. But aquí está. Okay. Galway, Rome, Napoca, Terrassa, Valladolid. Okay. Then, and one of them is Sofia. Why you don't repeat this experience for the future? Okay.
I know that we're running over, so I don't want to eat into your lunch too much, but has anybody got any pressing comments, questions on any of the presentations, or Mark?
I wanted to tell something about what we have in Germany, AG Kino, so it's the network of all art house kinos, and what they do is share their data. Like you share every week your numbers of your screenings. So sometimes it helps me sometimes because then you can find movies you didn't know of, or you didn't think it would work, and then you see the numbers and then you can play.
We also have Maxbox, and for that it's a platform, so I can check other cinemas' numbers as well. The big cinemas are also on, like the multiplexes, but they only are visible after a couple of months because they don't want to share. But for the art houses, I can see it immediately as well. Yeah. and it's very convenient for us as well.
I would like to know for Access Cinema, do they charge a ticket for the screenings or it's mostly free?
No, they're mostly paid admission. So part of the process is that after every screening, the site will send us their box office information and admissions information, which is why we are able to collect the admissions. We then send the information to the distributor. The distributor will invoice Access Cinema. Access Cinema pays the distributor on behalf of the sites, because most of our sites don't want to be invoiced after every single screening. So then we will kind of invoice maybe on a monthly basis or every 2 months and recoup. We don't take any portion of the box office. We charge a fee for each screening, which we call a booking fee.
That was my second question. How do you finance the organization, like the mothership? Like, what do they pay?
So we're also funded by the Arts Council as one of their strategic funded organisations. So we get a grant every year. Well, sorry, it's not guaranteed. We have to apply every year. And then, yes, the booking fee goes towards generated income. And then some of the other activities we do as well that I haven't presented.
So they don't have to pay a subscription, like each of them?
There is an affiliation, or I suppose you call it a subscription fee per year. And at the moment it's very much dependent on the size of the organisation, what format they screen from, whether they're a funded organisation themselves or voluntary, and also how often they screen. So the smallest organisation will pay, that maybe screens once a month for like 9 months of the year, will pay €40 per year, all the way up to a larger art centre venue that's screening all year round, once to twice a week. They pay about €500.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's. I mean, we're not for profit. So ultimately, it's just to balance the books.
So, thank you for this question. That was so helpful. Thank you for the answers. And sorry, I have a bit more questions, but what is needed for a venue to join the network? And is there like a minimum audience for screenings that you require?
No.
Great.
So no minimum. Essentially, we have a process where that we kind of, it's semi-formal, but so we get a lot of queries, and for people, usually after Christmas, where people have sat in the pub and kind of gone, do you know what we need in our village? Is a film society. Well, we need screenings. So we normally then, 3 to 4 times a year, we hold information sessions about licensing and costs and the service that we can provide. Once an organisation has attended that information session, then we, if they want to try out the idea of screening, and if they're ready, if they have a venue, if they have equipment and all of that, and they have some sort of budget, we require that they do a minimum of 3 test screenings, is what we call them. And we will guide them. We try to say to them to sort of use that as a test bed, both for them to try out the audience and different types of films, and maybe even different types or different days of the week and all this kind of things, but also so that they can get a sense of the service that we provide. There's no requirement for them to become a member of Access Cinema during this process or even after that process. And then if at that point they want to join the network, then we will look at it, and we will look at that on an ongoing basis.
Great. And I have a few more.
No.
Sorry. Just like one last.
Can't you talk?
There was another question here. There was one last question, and then we go for lunch. And anybody who wants to, I mean, I don't know if there's any questions for Caro or Arturo. Anybody who wants to talk to me about Access Cinema, you can just grab me over lunch.
I have one for Arturo.
Yes.
Maybe it's interesting for more, but how many times per month did you have screenings for the young audience? This is one part. And what ages had the young audience? Because I didn't quite see it in the pictures. And also, did you have some sort of cultural mediation for them within the screening, or was it just one screening and sometimes the director invited and nothing else, or just the food was part of every event? So how often? How many?
Okay, with the children, in our case, it's not. We don't have programmation for children normally, but the colleges or the secondary school, the schools go in the mornings, maybe twice a week.
No, but for this project, in your project, how often?
This project was finished, something like this. This project was important for establish collaboration between us, no? But this project was in Poland, in Gdynia and Łódź, and then.
But they were with adult films. There were only adult films shown in the project, or also children's films?
No, this 20,000 species of bee. This was something singular, no?
But you said that it was the young audience.
For the young audience. But this encourage us to do something not the same, but something similar, and to establish relationships between us, no? But the project is not, how to say, like something continuous.
We understand this.
Yeah.
What did you do during the project for young audience?
Okay, prepare something about culture, no? About history, about before the showing the film. We show some about culture, about history, and before this, the days before, the teachers in the schools talk to the people about Spanish culture, about all this, no, for being context, no, and then we talk.
How many screenings did you do, Arturo? How many of those screenings?
It was only one in Gdynia and another in
So
one per cinema.
In one cinema, in this cinema.
One per cinema.
And in your cinema?
One per cinema.
In your cinema?
In cinema, no, it's
Okay.
no, it's only this local television. And then the people who met there, we established some other collaboration, future collaboration, but different to the project. You know? The project was like something to encourage us to collaborate in the future. You know? But the project was only in these two cities in Poland. And for this, it's very difficult to organize. And for this, I said we can do the same in the future, but in years in the future, no. But it's not a program, continuous program.
Well, that is the basis of collaborative innovate, is to try out something, and then if it works, to potentially beyond the project.
Because it's interesting because we are UNESCO cities, and we don't know each other, even in Spain or in Europe, no? And it's very interesting, the UNESCO city in this case. No? But it's something.
Thank you so much. I think people are hungry, so we will break for lunch and come back here for 2 o'clock.
People are hungry.
Well, there's something very important
Congratulations again on your presentation.